Hey everybody, welcome back to Desert Sky Adventures. Today is Monday, August 28th, 2023, and today we are back out here at the historic Gleeson Ghost Town. I'm here with my friend Dylan today from Moo Cow Ranch Media, and we're in for a special treat today because the patriarch of the town, Joe Bono, a man who's lived here his entire life and actually remembers what this was like when it was a bustling town, is going to talk to us and show us a couple things today, and we're really looking forward to it. So let's go over and have a little chat with him, and then we'll take a look around the town. How you doing, Joe?
Just fine now.
Thanks for taking the time with us today. Appreciate it. Everybody, this is Joe Bono, and you are kind of the patriarch of the town, right? You've lived here your entire life?
Yes, I was raised here. My mom and dad had the store saloon, so I've been raised here since I was young. I did leave in the 50s. The town became a ghost town. There was only about 12 of us here in town, so my dad locked up the store and we moved to Tombstone back in those days. But while I lived here, we didn't have running water or electricity at the time.
Wow.
We had to rely on lanterns, candles. We went and got our water from, it was a public well back then. Everybody would get their water from there. So it served its purpose, and we shared the water however we could, and we took care of the water that we had, because we had to bring it in buckets to the store. And we just were very conservative of the water there.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what year approximately would you say that Gleeson over here became a ghost town?
It was in the mid-50s, I think, when we left. What happened, the Bisbee pit opened up, and a lot of the miners moved to Bisbee. It was a bigger operation, more pay, and there was a skeleton crew that worked here, but it was very minimal. A lot of people had left the town, mainly miners, and there was cattlemen, ranchers that lived here, but it was very unpopulated then.
Yeah.
It was a dirt road coming in here, so you had to take your time to get here.
And how many people lived here at one time, would you say?
At one time, there was about 1,500 people that lived here. They'd had a school and had a hospital. There was about 115 kids that went to school here.
Right.
They went up to the 8th grade, and then they were bussed up to Tombstone to finish the high school.
And if I'm not mistaken, what's left of the
Yes,
school is over there, correct?
That's what's left of the school. The pillars, it used to have an arch across there, and everybody thought it was a 2-story school, but it really wasn't. It had a basement, and the kids would play in the basement during the summertime or wintertime, and the rest, it was combined classes.
Did you go to that school?
No, I didn't. My sisters went to school. I started school in Tombstone, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was one of my first times in, well, it was kindergarten back then. And I had Mrs. Nuttall was the school teacher, and I used to go wait for my sister to get out of high school, and she noticed that, and she asked me why I wasn't in school, and I didn't speak that much English back at that time. I mainly spoke Spanish, so I waited for my sister to come and translate.
Right.
And she told her that she'd be bringing me to school every day, so that's how I started kindergarten. But it was mainly, I spoke Spanish back in those days, and
Wow.
that was my first language.
Interesting.
Yeah, my dad came from Italy, and my mom came from Mexico. So I learned the Spanish more from my mom living at home, and then later on I picked up on the English, and that was how I became bilingual.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Now tell us about the jail over here. I know this, well, obviously one of the first things you notice when you pull into town is that this building obviously has been restored probably a couple times, right?
Yeah.
Were you responsible for that restoration?
Partially done some of that. It used to be my playhouse growing up when it closed down in the 30s. And I used to play Cowboys and Indians here. And I would always come back. I had moved away, and I always came back. My uncle's buried at the cemetery. So I would come and visit. And like I said, nobody would come in here. It was a dirt road. So one day I was passing by and I saw a for sale sign out in the front. So I had to turn around and came back, and I got the phone number and called the lady, and we got to talking. She asked me if I was from the original Bono family that lived here, and I said, yeah. So she said, we gotta talk about it. So
Wow.
I eventually bought it from her, and she had restored it some and had some stuff in there. And I had a bunch of stuff from my dad's store, saloon. I didn't know what to do with. I had it in storage, and I said, well, what a great place to open it up for people and let them see.
Absolutely.
And I open it the first Saturday of the month, and we only operate through donations and
Right.
whatever keeps it going. But there's been a lot of interest in it now.
So first Saturday of every month,
First
people can
Saturday
come
of
out
every
here and
month.
visit the jail and
Yes,
stuff.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay.
Starting this next Saturday.
Next
Yeah.
Saturday.
Next Saturday is
Second.
the first time in 3 months, because we closed during the summer because of the heat
Mhm.
and for maintenance. So this is opening day this Saturday. So come on out, and we got walking tours, ATV tours, and lots of really fun information. I think people would be interested.
Yeah, I took the ATV tour last time. It was awesome. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of history.
Yes.
But before we check a couple things out, let me just ask you. Last time I was here, I heard a few ghost stories about this place. You've been here longer than anyone. Is Gleeson haunted?
To me, it was like natural. I didn't think much about it. But once people started pointing things out to me, then I could see it. And I do have the paranormals come out.
Right.
They've verified it in the jail, at the school, and at the hospital also. But yes, it's quite haunted, especially at night when you hear things and see things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good stuff. Well, can we go check out the jail?
Sure can.
All right, let's do it.
This wagon here was used to take the dynamite up to the mines.
Oh, wow.
It was owned by the Christensens, and as you can see, the suspension carrying dynamite up to the mines, and it'd pick up stuff up there from the railroad and bring it down into town. And I've tried to preserve it and keep it as much as it's been.
Wow. So how old would you say this is?
This was brought over in the late 1800s, 1890 probably, from Texas.
Wow.
It was brought over by oxen, and then it was adapted to the horses, like I said, and he had a little business of, it was like a little wagon business carrying goods back and forth from the mine up to the store, saloon. And actually, it's got like a little toolbox in front. And when I opened it up, it had the old bullwhip there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's actually inside the jail there.
Oh, yeah, there's a little toolbox there. Very neat.
This was actually the first gate of the jail when it was built. It was a wooden jail out here in front, and this was the gate that it had to it.
Wow.
But what happened, it had a tin roof, and the prisoners would push up on the tin roof and escape from it.
Wow.
So that's why they built this one in 1910, and pretty sturdy. They built this one and the one in Cortland for $1,500 at that time. And this one, like I said, it's been redone and taken care of. So it was a 2-cell jail. They had maybe 12 to 15 prisoners, jail inmates during the weekend, depending how rowdy it was. And it's a 2-cell, and the sheriff sat out here in front. People would come. This was walled. It had a door. That was a door over there, also to the cell.
Wow. Very cool. And this one is kind of a carbon copy of the one that's up in Cortland, right?
In Cortland, yes.
But I've seen what's left of that, and
Yeah, there's not much left. It's been vandalized, graffitied.
it has, yes.
This one has been lucky. I've been lucky. Nobody's been bothering me. They know about it and they respect it. And like I said, I have a lot of stuff out of my dad's store saloon. I didn't know what to do with it. And I said, what better way to, display it and have people, especially the kids, come from the school and they want to see the stuff, and they really haven't saw some of this stuff. The old telegraph, I tell them that's the first texting that there ever was.
Yeah.
In the old telegraph system. The old, this is 1893 rifle that belonged to one of the ranchers here, and used to do a lot of hunting here. And I bought it from him. He quit hunting, so he told me this belongs here, so I went ahead and bought it from him.
Yeah, good.
A lot of these shotguns and weapons, they came out of the barns and houses here. You can see they were all held by bolts and wire.
Yeah.
And as long as they still operated, they kept them.
Yeah.
But when the miners moved away, a lot of the stuff, they only took what they had to. A lot of these were left. This is one of the old shotgun that they used to carry on the stagecoach. These were handcuffs. The deputies couldn't carry or couldn't buy handcuffs.
Right.
They were expensive, so they'd go to the blacksmith and have these made. And they served as a billy club, but once you put it on your wrist,
Yeah.
you're gonna follow whoever's there.
Right.
You don't see too many of these anymore. It had a little leather strap, and that was one of the things they had made.
Wow. So that's really old right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a lot of this stuff. It's original. The old Pancho Villa poster, advertising for workers to work for him, dynamiters, machine gunners, and they would be paid in gold. He used to ride up through here when he didn't go up and invade Tombstone.
We have the old ball and chain here.
Oh, yeah, look at that. That'll slow you down a little bit, huh?
Oh yeah.
Probably wouldn't stop them, but it would slow them down.
The original used to be the hanging tree where they used to tie the prisoners, but it was getting pretty packed down there, and the wash served as the bathroom. When the wash ran, it cleaned up the bathroom, and they'd have a cable run across the wash, and us kids, we'd go down and throw rocks at them. They were the bad guys.
Yeah.
So it was fun.
I think the last time I came here, I read about there was a famous person that was locked in here.
Cochise.
Was that what it was?
Yeah, Cochise was held here one night. They brought him out of the Chiricahuas and were taking him to sign the treaty, either in Tombstone or Bisbee. And of course, in those days, they only traveled by horseback. So they had to spend the night, and they held him here one night.
Wow. Interesting.
This is the second room. This I dedicated to my family. Like I said, my dad came from Italy and my mom from Mexico. And they actually met here in Gleeson at a dance.
Wow.
And I always say I was born under two great cultures, the Mexican culture and the Italian. They had great foods.
For sure.
And these are some of the people that lived here. That was my dad's store at the time. The only gasoline station here.
And the shell of this building is still there, right?
Yeah. The roof is caved in, but it's still there. And it has a basement, but I try to tell people to stay out.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, the radio came out of my dad's store. They used to hook up a battery to it, the car battery, and run it. And then when the battery was getting low, they'd throw it back in the car and charge it.
Huh.
He was World War One veteran. He came when he was 15 years old. He allied and he said he was 16. And back in those days, they had to draft. So when supposedly he turned 18, they drafted him into World War One.
And this is the fellow you're talking about here, Joe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my dad, my mom and dad, when they got married in 1931.
Wow. And then who's Barney Bono?
Barney was my uncle. He's the
okay.
one that came from Italy with my dad. And they actually came to Tombstone and opened up a sandwich shop in Tombstone. But Gleeson and Cortland were going big, so they came down here and opened the store in Gleeson and Cortland. And Barney's the one that's buried here in Gleeson, and my dad's uncle was buried in Tombstone. He's in the old city cemetery.
I've been there numerous times.
Yeah, if you walk in, his tomb is the biggest one you see on the left-hand side down there.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Fernando Carlavato, and he ran the Crystal Palace for a long time. He had a son from one of the Can-Can girls. He died of tuberculosis. He was shot actually in the Crystal Palace, and his health deteriorated. His son died when he was 5 or 7 years old, and he's buried next to him up there.
Wow.
And I go up and I take care of the grave when I get a chance. This was actually Bisbee in the 50s when the pit first started, and that's why a lot of miners went to Bisbee. You can see there was hardly any of the pit back then.
Yeah. Wow, so is this... We just did a tour of the Copper Queen the other day. Would that have been over here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Lowell is down here, and Warren is in the background. But the old road you could see used to go through see the bridge across the road there?
Yeah.
That used to be where you drove.
Wow. Yeah, it looks quite a bit different now, that's for
Oh
sure.
yeah, way different.
Good stuff.
This was one of the Buffalo soldiers' beds when they used to come to Gleeson. They were chasing Geronimo and Pancho Villa, and that's one of the original blankets, and you can see the U.S. emblem on the sides of the bed.
Wow.
They used to come up and patrol the areas, and then they'd go in the store. My dad would sell them sandwiches and whatever he had, and for some reason they always had chocolate, so the kids were always after them for the chocolate. Chocolate bars. One of the movies that was made, 1938, by Zane Grey, and you can still see it on, or buy it on eBay, and shows the original Gleeson around here. It was filmed, actually they filmed the hanging right outside the store, and they hired just the locals to be fill-ins. They asked my mom, but I guess my dad didn't want her discovered, so he wouldn't let her be in the film. One of the kids from the Christensens came down, and he worked there with them for 2 or 3 days, and they paid him 35 cents. Well, he walked back to the ranch, and he had lost a nickel on the road. He spent 3 days looking for that nickel on the road, but never could find it. Back in those days, a nickel was worth a lot more.
Yeah.
So,
Didn't want to lose that.
no. And a lot of the mines up here have the turquoise, have the original turquoise that came out up there. I call it Bigfoot. And it's still there. A lot of people come up and do rock hounds. And one of the minerals that's been found up there is this, it's wolfenite. It's very valuable. And it's only found here in Gleeson and in Yuma.
Wow. Never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's...
What is it called?
wolfenite.
Wolfenite.
Yeah. I think Arizona made it a state mineral. It's so rare.
Wow.
Well, these are some of the people that have lived here, the families. They've all come down for reunions. I grew up with most of them here in Gleeson.
Wow, so you remember these people?
Oh, yes, yes. A lot of them were my babysitters or took care of me, whatever.
Wow, a lot of history here.
Yes, yes, a lot of history, and I like to preserve it. I said, you know, as long as I'm here, I can share it.
So Cochise and Luther Price.
Right.
And he
Prison
murdered
is
like a
here.
bunch of people, didn't he?
Yes, exactly.
And he was on his way to Yuma, if I remember correctly. They
Right.
put him here and then, okay.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
And over here is our resident Yiwi,
Mm-hmm.
who was a Chinese immigrant who had a restaurant here. And when they did some digging on his property, they came across his opium pipe,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
the real thing.
Yeah.
He lived here for a long time, up into 60s, and he's buried up here at the cemetery, actually. And people go up and put money on his grave because the Chinese believed putting money on their grave for their afterlife.
Yeah.
So he was quite a character. He lived here in town, had a restaurant right close to the public well. And what happened, he started getting a little senile, and he would tell the people that was his well. Well, my dad one day went over there and getting water, he came out with a shotgun and shot at my dad. And of course my dad went over to the store and picked up his rifle, shotgun, and he was gonna go back out. That was one of the last gunfights here in Gleeson. My mom stopped him at the time, so it was just one of those things that took place here.
Probably for the best, huh?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Didn't need to get in trouble.
No.
No, I think he went on to live a pretty long life, didn't he? Phil?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And he's buried up here in the cemetery.
At the cemetery. And his story that was that he came from China on a boat, and when they got to San Francisco, they put him over the boat in the water in a barrel. And he worked his way on shore in San Francisco, and he started working for the railroad. And he ended up in Tombstone because he had family in Tombstone, and he worked them for a while, and then he came to Gleeson when he was growing, and he opened up his own Chinese restaurant. But he was quite a character. Yi Wei was his name, and he lived here for long. He was one of the last descendants here, and when they buried him, they went into his house and they found dried frogs, dried lizards, whatever he could cook up. And they actually found a check from China that was $200 and some thousand.
Wow.
And they can't figure out if he was from one of the families back there or he worked for the government, but the check disappeared and they never knew what happened to him. And they buried him up here in the cemetery, and when they were burying him, they just had some priest or deacon come down and do the ceremonies. Well, the deacon or priest fell into the grave.
Oh, wow.
And they had to pull him out before they could put Yi Wei in there. It was quite a fiasco.
Wow, what a story. And so do we know why he was shooting at your dad, or was he just crazy?
Well, he just got senile and he wanted the rights over the water.
Huh.
So he was telling everybody, he had a vegetable garden, he was growing a vegetable garden. So he wanted the water for himself, but everybody else used to use the well, you know, to get their water. That was the only water they had here, actually.
All right, so now that we've checked out the jail, Joe's going to go get the side-by-side. We're going to head out into the desert a little bit and take a look at a little more of what's left of the Gleeson ghost town.
There's not much left of the school. You can see the weather's taking over it. But besides my sisters, my three sisters went here, and my brother-in-law that was married to my oldest sister. And they used to play out here in the playground, and one day he was playing and he found a $5 give you 5 ones for your one. So he traded her, and he said he could always kick himself in the butt for doing that.
Wow.
And the floor here that they took out was reinstalled in the Crystal Palace.
I had heard that, yeah.
The floor and the ceiling in the Crystal Palace is from out here. Those days they didn't have Home Depot or Lowe's, so they
Just reused a bunch of stuff.
reclaimed a lot of wherever they could, the wood.
I've seen photos of this when it was still a building, and I can't believe these 2 columns are still standing.
Still standing, yep.
Through all the monsoons and everything, they're still standing. It's pretty crazy.
And you can see the cables in the wall.
Yeah.
That's how they used to de-stress the cement. They used the cables on there, and that's probably why it's lasted so long. This is the store saloon. We lived on the back side. My dad had a basement underneath there where he'd store dry goods, tobacco, whiskey, wine, whatever. We lived on the back side. We used to live in the front. There used to be a house across the street, but people started breaking in and stealing beer and wine.
Yeah.
So we moved back here to the back. This was the kitchen on this side. Bedrooms were on the other side, but if you see those 2x4s there, when my mom would do any cooking, she'd put it out there to cool off. It had like a little cage,
Yeah.
and she'd cool it off there. There was some steps that came out the backside, and I had we had like a little barn back there. It had chickens, rabbits. I had a pig, and whatever we could raise. This was actually the caretaker's trailer. He lived here for a long time. Him and his wife. His wife is buried underneath a porch there.
Oh, wow.
She passed away, so he buried her here. He's passed away. The kids come out and visit once in a while, but they lived here for the long time too. This is the hanging tree that I was telling you about. You can still see the cable and the chain there.
Yeah.
And it came across the wash here. They tied the prisoners. They used to handcuff them by the right hand because the kids would come down and throw rocks at them. But one time they had a left-hander, so he was able to throw rocks back at the kids and chase them off. There was actually a couple of hangings here also. Back in those days, they hung you for cattle rustling, thieving, whatever you know. It wasn't easy back in those days. There was a lot of people that died of influenza. Babies, the elderly. There was one doctor and maybe a couple of nurses. And I actually, a couple of months back, had the doctor's grandson. He lives in Phoenix. He's a doctor, and he wants to come down here and visit. And I said, fine, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And if you look off over there, that pit, that was the burn pit where they did amputations. Maybe a leg, maybe an arm, whatever it was, and they'd put it in the burn pit. We can walk back there if you can. They didn't want the animals getting to the body parts.
Right.
So they would burn them over here.
Was it just body parts, or did they burn entire bodies?
No, just body parts.
Stuff they didn't want getting dug up and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Wow. That's how they used to do it.
Yeah, they couldn't get rid of the body parts, and they just didn't want to throw them out in the desert, so they'd make a burn pit and burn whatever they could.
Wow.
The blacksmith shop was back there, and he did a lot of the stuff too for the cattle and taking care of burning the body parts.
So the old hospital. And what year did they build this thing? Do you know?
It was the early 1900s when they first put the mines in.
Yeah.
They needed some kind of doctoring and hospital, so it was a company hospital.
I've seen photos of this street when all the buildings still stood and there were cars and stuff.
Oh, yeah, lined up, and the store was a lot bigger. It went over to where the mailboxes were, but that part of it fell in, and he kept coal, some of his dry goods there. But last year, with all the rains and everything, the roof caved in, and this wall. We always thought it was going to be the south wall, but the north wall takes the beating, and plus it had a fireplace that was added on here on the corner, and I think that weakened that corner there.
Yeah, it could be. I had a couple of viewers saw that first video, and they were like, "You need to go in there and look at the mural." And I knew at the time already that mural was long gone. Wasn't it on this wall right here?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and that was, when did they put that there? Do you remember?
It was in the early 70s. Some artist came through, and he told him for a few beers he'd make a mural on the wall, and that's what he did. I think it was like 1973.
So in 73, this place was still up and running.
Oh yeah, it was still going. It was still going. People.
It was a saloon then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was mainly
Very
a saloon,
popular.
and they'd have dances here. Big weekend get-togethers.
Yeah. Wow.
You can see by all the mailboxes, there's
Still some people living out here, huh?
I think there's 55 people, families moving back there, and then 25 to the south. People just want to get out of the cities,
Yeah.
see something. This was the old warehouse up here, the B.A. Taylor warehouse, and when they bring goods on the train, they'd bring it down here and put it in the warehouse. And then the big fire had burned down. That's why you don't see any wood around here.
Yeah.
It's basically a snake pit now.
Yeah.
Snake pit. When we were kids, that's where the parents would let us go. That way they knew where we were at playing.
Drop you off at the pit.
Yeah. And
Playpen.
you see those bricks down there at the end?
Yeah.
That's where we used to be able to get in here. That was the lowest part. And we'd climb down into the bricks.
Huh. Wow. So when did this burn down? Do you know?
30s, I believe.
1912.
12 was
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was from the lanterns. See the window cutouts?
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
They had kerosene to light it up. And at night.
The curtains lit up and it just burnt the whole building.
So
Wow.
half the town lit it.
Yeah. I think there was like 28 buildings that burned down with it.
So after my first visit here, which was, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, I was reading about the cemetery, and I read, and maybe you can confirm this, but I had read that there was a saloon nearby, and a guy came out of there one night, and he was really, really drunk, and he put his horse inside one of the fences, thinking it was a corral, and it was one of the fences around the grave in the cemetery.
Yes.
Did that really happen?
Yes, it happened. It came out of my dad's saloon, actually. The mines up there.
Yeah.
The one to the left, that's where all that wolfenite is at. My brother-in-law took me in there back in the 60s, 70s, and you got to crawl in there. But
Or the one way up there at the top?
Way up on top.
Yeah.
But once you get in there, it opens up. It's like a big old football field in there.
Wow.
The old assayer's office was up there on that building up there on top.
Yeah.
It's like a brick building. And sometimes you can see people walking around up there. I don't know if they're real or just people wanting to see it.
Huh.
There was a family that lived here. They were Italians. They had a big old porch in the front there. Calderas were their names.
Wow.
Real good family. There was a lot of Italians here. These are buildings here that one of them was a post office, storage areas. There was a theater here also.
Restaurants.
Yeah.
And that was after the fire when they rebuilt.
Right.
Came back bigger and better.
Yep. This was the old Martinez house. They lived here for the longest time. It was only a 2-bedroom house, but they had like 11 kids, 12 kids.
Wow.
And it's got electricity to it, but never had water. They would always have to truck it in or bring it in the water.
Is it abandoned now?
Yes, it's sold to a couple in Tombstone, I believe.
Oh, wow. I had wondered about these buildings.
Yeah, the old bus barn used to be over here. It fell down. See the old brick building there, but right next to the right-hand side was the bus barn. And that's where they kept the bus that bused the kids to Tombstone. These houses were owned by Nacho Valdez. He lived here for the longest time. And what he did, he would fix tires. And you can see that axle down there. That's where he'd balance the tires when he.
Oh, wow.
And it still spins. It's still pretty balanced. And what happened? He got jealous of his wife, and he shot her. Turned the gun against himself and shot himself. Killed himself, but the wife lived.
Oh, wow.
So but she moved away.
Did that happen in the house?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, so what's over here, Joe, on the right?
That's my house, actually. I bought that house. That belonged to Nacho Valdez. And I had been fixing it, but it was getting to be too much, taking care of the jail and everything. So I sold it to my niece, and she lives up in Tempe, and she's going to come down and start fixing it up. That way they have a
Place to stay when they come down.
Yeah. Built the signs here, the Gleeson Cemetery. They didn't have any signs for it. My brother-in-law asked me to make the signs, so I went ahead and make those. And this is just a sign listing of the people. One of the neighbors made it. That way they can see. People come down and put flowers on their family graves and try to keep it up. But a lot of this was the Christensen family. They had the big ranch up here. Earl Christensen died in 2002. He was one of the last ones. Him and his brother Danny, they lived here. Roy, he was another one, 2008. Danny Christensen. Marie Christensen, his wife.
Wow. So you knew all these people?
Yes, I grew up with them. They lived here. One of the boys, younger boys, the Christensen boys, they went hunting, and the brother shot him, Paul Christensen. He was only 7 years old, and they were out hunting rabbits. The brother shot him, and they brought him back to the ranch and set him up in the porch. And of course they all went around their chores, doing their chores, and he passed away on the porch.
Was that accidental shooting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did they think he was going to live?
In those days, yeah, they wasn't sure, you know. It was a .22 shell. They didn't know, you know, how much damage. So they put him on the porch and just did their chores, and he passed away on the porch. Pearl Christensen, that was the mother of them all. She actually, they had the ranch back there, and she actually saw a UFO land on the mountain up there.
Really?
Yeah. And she kept telling people, but people kept saying, oh, she's a senile woman. And one time they said, well, let's go up and prove her wrong. And they went up there, and sure enough, there was 3 burn spots in the area. The rocks were glazed.
Yeah.
And they finally said she might have been telling the truth. This is Yi Hui's grave. And you can see people come and leave coins there. Old horseshoes for good luck. He always used to say, see you tomorrow. So that's what they put on the headstone.
You got pretty lucky that your dad backed down, huh?
Yeah.
He might have died a little earlier.
Actually, yeah. Yeah, because he was tremendous with a shotgun. He'd come after people with a shotgun, and it was just unbelievable.
Was there any kind of law enforcement, or was it just kind of citizen patrol kind of thing?
They had a sheriff, but it was all, you know, whoever thought they were in the right. They had a sheriff, and actually he caught some moonshiners and confiscated the moonshine, but he was actually selling it to my dad. So they sent the sheriff down from Tombstone, and he arrested my dad and the sheriff, and they took him back to Tombstone to stand trial. And my dad told him, well, I'm buying it from the sheriff. That's the law enforcement down there. So they actually let my dad go, and they fired the sheriff.
Oh, wow.
From Gleeson. This is Gene Yoakum. He lived there. Well, he lived here and in Cortland. He was one of the old timers that took care of the place, 1876 to 1974.
Lived a while.
Yeah, and then you can see a lot of the old graves. Some of them are still kept up, and they bring flowers. And my uncle's buried over there on the other side. It was one of the original cemeteries, so we try to take care of it as much as we can, and just people who are born here, want to be buried here, so
yeah,
we allow them to. The story I was going to tell you, the 3 guys they hung here back in the early 1900s. They had robbed a stage down in Douglas or Bisbee. It was a mining payroll, and they came up through the valley here, and the posse was after them, so they spent the night at the hospital there where we were at. And the posse caught up to them in the morning, but they couldn't find the money. So they figured they had buried there around the hospital somewhere, but they hung them here. And that's why I always wonder, my brother-in-law found that $5 gold piece at the school.
Yeah.
I said, maybe they spent the night at the school and they just came over here and caught them here.
Wow.
So it's just one of those things that you never know.
Never know.
Against the mountain way up there, the CEO from Disneyland used to live there and had a summer place. He'd come down, he'd have big parties, invite all the neighbors and everything else. We just loved it down here.
Yeah.
This is the road I This used to be the blacksmith shop right here and bring in the ore cars. You can see the rails in the concrete.
Yeah.
And he'd fix the ore cars and send them back down underground. You see all the Gleeson from up here. The pit goes down 300 feet and 1,800 feet into the mountain.
Oh.
Bono used to work at him and his brother. They used to have like an elevator system. That A-frame was over the pit, but people were rappelling down in there and falling in, so they'd have to have rescues. So they had to have the tractors come up.
I heard that bungee jumpers used to use this. Is that true?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Just jump into the hole, huh?
Right.
Wow.
The A-frame was right above there.
Right above it, yeah. So they just moved this back to keep people from going down in there.
Right.
Wow.
And actually, one of the guys that leased the bar from my dad, he had bought a new truck, and he was running the bar, but he was drinking a lot of the profits. So he couldn't pay for the truck, so he drove it up here, put a brick on the gas, and drove it in there. Called the bank and told him, your truck's down there at the bottom of the pit if you want it.
It's still down there today?
As far as I know, nobody's taking it out.
Yeah. Wow. So you think this thing would have been from like the 1800s or early 1900s? 1800s?
1800s.
Wow.
When they first started mining, John Gleeson was the mining engineer, and he opened up, well, he was the Golden Bell here, and he started it up.
It was 1897,
Yeah.
I believe.
And I think if I remember correctly, I saw a photo like this. There used to be like a main street right up here, right?
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
buildings and
that was the
everything.
street. That was the street. A lot of the miners, they used to live as close to work as they could. They didn't have carpools or anything, so they had to walk to work.
Yeah.
So they tried living as close to the
Better just to live up here.
to the mine. This is where the train used to come. It had the tracks and everything.
Huh.
It'd stop next to the mine and unload and pick up the copper or whatever they had, take it back down.
So this is the rail bed.
Yeah.
Huh.
You see the old fire breaks here.
Yeah.
You can see they used to use tins or I don't know, whatever they could for melting the ore.
I thought I read somewhere that there actually is some value to the slag, but they didn't realize it back then.
Yeah.
So they just kind of threw it away.
Yeah, the Japanese have come in and said they can come in and all these mountains that were left, they can come in and reclaim some of the slag.
Huh.
Back in those days, they were looking for the big stuff, small stuff they'd throw away. So a lot of these, I think they were like tins or something, they melted them in.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of pot.
That looks like maybe a pot right there.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy.
Well, back in those days, they didn't have safety equipment. They didn't have gloves
No OSHA.
in the heat. They had the hospital, which was over there. But a lot of them, they didn't have safety glasses, so they'd get little pebbles in their eyes.
Yeah.
And I think my mom was the only one in town that had tweezers, so they'd call my mom and she'd go pull the pebbles out of their eyes, and I'd have to go with her with a kerosene lantern and hold it, and these guys are screaming and yelling, you know, and I'm all scared. A lot of people come tell them they can use the picnic tables and ramadas. You know, they're welcome to have a picnic and have the kids run around.
Well, that was an awesome tour, sir. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you for stopping by.
Appreciate it.
I'm always glad to give tours.
Yeah. And if anyone's watching this, come on out. It was every first Saturday of the month, right? First Saturday of the month? First Saturday of the month, and you do Polaris tours, tours of the jail.
Walking tours, jail tour, and it's all free. It's just run by donations. So
make sure to leave some donations.
Keeps the place going.
We try to have snacks on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watermelon this week, and maybe some grapes, water for people that don't have their water.
Especially out here.
Yeah,
water.
it gets so hot.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate it. Anytime you want to come out, let me know.
We'll be back for sure. All right, guys. Well, that's where we're going to wrap it up from the Gleeson Ghost Town. I want to give another big thanks to Joe Bono for taking us all through the town, showing us all sorts of history, and telling us about all the cool things that happened here around 100 years ago or so. But that'll about do it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do me a favor, if you did, hit that like button on the way out. Those things really help us out, and they don't cost you a thing. So, from the Gleeson Historic Ghost Town, about a half hour from Tombstone. Until next time, until the next video, see you down the road.